when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go.
Hello and welcome back. Today I want to go over a little bit with both HTML and CSS, and it's going to be relatively simple on the HTML side, more focused on the CSS and selecting various things that we want to target. So jumping right in, let's talk about commenting very first. So you've seen me comment on things, but we actually haven't gone through it, which is long overdue. In HTML, a comment begins, and you can do this anywhere within the document, the whole entire document. I can do it before the doc type or after the doc type, it doesn't matter. The comment will hide the content. So if you see here, we have our normal web page. We have, we have our normal web page, and we have our H1 through our H6. And let's say that I wanted to hide this H1. Well, I don't want it to show on the page, but I still want it to be here so I can see it in my document. In that case, what I want to do is I want to put an opening angle bracket, exclamation, and hyphen, hyphen, 2 dashes. Then I'm going to do hyphen, hyphen, and a closing angle bracket. And that, and it doesn't matter if there's a bunch of space in there or not, but I like it to just be clean like that. And so this will actually take out my H1 and it'll leave it in my document like I just said. So when I go in there, my H1 is gone and it's no longer being displayed via the web browser, because the web browser reads this and says, oh, that's a comment, we don't put that in there. And so we're going to go ahead and take that one out. And let's see here. I want to show you guys the shortcuts. So if I wanted to individually highlight each one of these lines, and I wanted to, go opening angle bracket, closing angle bracket, I would have to do that for each one. That would be long and tedious. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these, and on Mac, you're going to use Command Option /. That will give you all of those lines individually highlighted. And it doesn't matter. So let's see. If I'm on this line, for example, and I hit Command Option, and I hit /, it's going to let me do each line individually, all the way down the document if I want to. And so I can comment individual lines, or I can highlight them all, and I can go Command Option /, and it'll do it for me that way. But also, that's when each line is individually commented. You'll have different reasons for using both ways, but the other way that you want to do it is to say Command Control / on Mac. And that gives me a single comment altogether for all the lines, and that takes out everything all at once, even though each line isn't necessarily commented. This is the beginning, and this is the end, and everything in between is commented out. Very simple. So now back to normal, and let's take a look at it on this side. Now, CSS is slightly different. What you want to do here is have a a / and an asterisk, which begins it, and then you want to have an asterisk and a / in reverse to close it off. And that will be the entirety of the comment. And again, if I was to let's undo those. If I was going to highlight any amount of these and I hit Command Option /, it's going to give me those individual lines. And then same thing in reverse, or in HTML and CSS both, you can use Command Control, and it'll do a single comment rather than a line by line comment. And so if I was going to highlight this whole entire thing, I give it a single comment, and then I jump over to my web page. You can see all of my styling is gone because I'm just commenting on it in my document to keep notes for myself, for example, but I don't want the browser to read it, and that's what comments do. So very straightforward, not too challenging there, and everything's back to normal. So let's move forward from there. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is CSS selectors. Now, let me jump over because I do have a slide for you here. And let's go back one. All right. So this is CSS selector categories. These are the different types of selectors there are. And if you recall CSS rule. This is a selector here, right? The H1, the paragraph, that's the selection that we're making. That's the element that we're targeting in this particular case. And there are simple selectors, combinators, pseudo class, pseudo element, and attribute selectors. The simple includes tag names, which you know about, which is the one that you saw here. Those are both tag names. And that's how we're making the selection. But you can also make a simple selection based on class and ID. Then you have combinator selectors, which are relationship based. Like, this is a child of that. And we'll go into detail on that later, what that really means. It's just the relationship between two elements. And if that condition is met, then it selects that thing. State based, like a visited link or a hovered link. If there's a link on a page, when you hover over it, that's a state. When you're not hovering over it, that's another state. When it's been selected, that's a state. Each one of those states can be altered or targeted based on, targeted is the better word, for CSS and styling based on that particular state. And you're going to see some of that in the near future. Then pseudo elements are partial element selection. Attributes are either like the attribute themselves or the attribute value. And that's how we select based on. So we will get into more details on all these. For now, I'm going to move forward, and for the sake of this video, we're going to talk about simple selectors. So the CSS selectors I want to talk about for this video are element selectors. Again, these are the ones that you're already familiar with. All pre-formatted text would get whatever was in the curly braces here that was being styled. All paragraphs, all heading ones, all number one headings, main headings. Then you have universal selector. There's only one of these, and it's an asterisk, and it basically targets every single thing in the document. It'll target, if I use this, it's targeting that P, and that H1 all at the same time, and it's like a catch-all. So no font on my page should be under 20 pixels, and so you do that first, all the way up at the top of the CSS document, and then you build over that basically with some of these other selectors and stylings. You can, certainly, which we'll talk about how that works too here in the near future. So we also have class selectors. Now, you'll notice the asterisk here on ID and class selectors, and that's because there's a little bit of HTML required in order to meet these requirements. So class selectors begin with a dot, and ID selectors begin with hashtags. Class selectors can target multiple specific elements. ID selectors target one specific element. There's only one ID. It's got to be unique, and you can't have it anywhere else on the page. And that's what it means by it's got to be unique. You can only use it for one single element one time and target just that element with a lot of specificity. And that term will come back around several times, specificity. It's an important topic in CSS. So let's go ahead and jump into some examples. We have, is it coming? Oh, I got to get out of full screen mode. I don't know why it blocks me there. Okay, so let's talk about the very first one we've already discussed is element selectors. You've seen that in action. That's what's currently up on this reference website. I'm going to talk about class first. And in order to get a class, you have to go over here to HTML, and that's what that asterisk was before that I mentioned, HTML required. So in order to get this to function properly, we need to use the class attribute. Let's start out with the, as a matter of fact, this will actually be beneficial if we duplicate this line a couple times to have several H1s. And we can call this one 2, and this one 3, and this one 4, so we know. And let's just call it 1. Why not? 1, 2, 3, and 4. We have all these H1s. They're currently targeted exactly the same way. And what we want to now do is say, okay, H1 color blue, right? But what about if I want to target this second one, world 2, and I want that to be orange? In that case, what I can do is I can give it a class. Let's try this and say class, and then I give it a name. So any name I want. And then what I can do is go over here to app CSS, and I can target that. And we target it, as I mentioned, with a dot. So this dot class is dot and then the name I want, which in my case, my program recognizes that these documents are connected, and I can easily just click on any name I want, and that's specifically the one that I'm going to target. And then I want to change the color to orange, I said. Whoop, if I can spell. And let's go check that out. And boom, there it is. Hello World 2. So now I'm being more specific. And there's two reasons this works, which we will get into probably in the next video. It's got a lot to do with which order you put it in sometimes. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But for now, I just want you to focus on the fact that this is a class. And this is how we select classes, by placing any name I want, so to speak. And I can copy this. And as I said before, I can target multiple elements, and I could even target this one right here. And even though it's not an H1, well, now I can get my paragraph, to do exactly what I want it to do based on the class that I've chosen and I've shared among all those particular elements. I can add it to any of them that I want to. So now I want to do a new one with the ID. And ID is going to require me to use the ID attribute. So let's go ahead and make a couple of H2s, a couple of heading 2s. And in this one, I want to specifically target this particular element. And I want to say ID. And then any name I want again. But it's got to be a unique name. And then I can go over here to my app.css, and I can use the hashtag. Again, going back to this document here, the hashtag is what ultimately is going to tell us that we are targeting an ID, and then we have to use the name of that ID that we used inside the HTML. So in this case, it's a unique name. And so if I go like this, and then I hit tab, a unique name, and now I can target background color, for example, and we'll just say turn it back to white. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. There it is, and boom, just like that. That background color is no longer green. It's been overridden, even though the rest of them are, because here we're saying background color green, and then we're overriding it with the ID. And this is an important topic. This specifically is called specificity. It's a weird thing to say, specifically specificity, but it's called specificity. And there's also something else you want to know, is the cascading style. So right here, I have background color green. Well, what if right after that I was to say H2, and I said background color, and I said purple, and then I went and checked that out. So now I have background color green, background color purple. So all these are showing purple, but that last one didn't change. It's still staying white. So that'll be the topic of conversation in our next video. But I just wanted you to see that it does matter which order you place it, because if I was to take this and switch out purple and green, if I said, let's see if I can do this here. Oh, it doesn't let me jump it up one. Okay. So if I was to switch purple and green, now everything's green again, and it basically negates the purple. So it's about the order that you write it in. What's happening is purple is being laid when the code reader reads it. The browser, has a code reader essentially, and as it gets to that line of code, it's going to highlight it purple. But then it gets to that next line of code, and it decides, highlight it green. And so it's like laying the green over the purple, so to speak. So that's what you're getting. Although it's replacing it, it's not laying it over it. So that's what you're seeing right there, and how you target some very specific things. I just want to give you a very quick introduction to the ID and the class. We're going to be digging into some details and getting into that more as time goes on. There's definitely some things that we're going to want to do. But I just wanted you to see the ID attribute, the class attribute, and go into like how to target those things. This one's the class, this one's the ID. And there's some cool things that you can do with that throughout time that'll help you build up websites and build up your portfolio and build up, whatever it is that you're trying to build up. I believe that covers us for this particular video. Yep. All right, I covered all my topics for this video, but on the next one, we will be going into some detail about that specificity and that cascading style in a little bit more detail. There are some priorities as far as how this page is structured, especially in the HTML regard, because this can really mess with CSS if it's not set up appropriately. Something to be aware of. I appreciate you guys' time. I will catch you in the next one.